All right, folks, strap in. We've got a tale of hypocrisy, Grindr, and a lawsuit that's making waves. So here's the deal. Monsignor Jeffrey Burrill, a bigwig in the Catholic Church, think high-ranking holy man type, was using Grindr. Yes, Grindr, the app where you're more likely to find a date than divine intervention. And what happens next? He gets outed, resigns, and now he's suing Grindr. Why? Because they allegedly didn't keep his data private enough. Picture this, a priest who's supposed to be living the celibate life, caught on Grindr. It's like finding a vegan at a barbecue contest. It's not just shocking, it's an all-you-can-eat buffet of irony. The Catholic Church, known for its anti-gay stance, is now scrambling because one of its own was caught in a hookup app scandal. It's like the church is saying, hey, we don't like what you're doing, but could you at least keep it a secret next time? Now, the real kicker is Burrill's lawsuit. He's basically saying, Grindr, you promised my data was safe, but look at me now. My holy reputation is in tatters. So he's asking for compensation, claiming Grindr didn't protect him from being exposed. It's the ultimate, don't blame me for my own bad decisions move. But here's the thing. The scandal's not just about what Burrill did. It's about the church's hypocrisy and the lengths they'll go to hide their own issues while pointing fingers. And the group that outed him, they've got data on other priests too. It's like they're running a secret name and shame operation, all while claiming to uphold religious values. So, what's the takeaway here? If you're in a position where secrecy is part of the gig, maybe don't use apps that scream discreet hookups. And if you're going to out someone, maybe look in the mirror first. Or, better yet, just don't. Because in the end, we're all just people, some with better secrets than others. And remember, folks, if you're going to track someone's Grindr activity, you better make sure your own house is squeaky clean. Because the only thing worse than getting caught on Grindr is getting caught being a massive hypocrite about it. Thanks for tuning in. And hey, if you're looking for a date, maybe stick to your local coffee shop. Just a thought.
Echo, that story is enough to destroy my irony meter for sure. I'm glad you're made of stronger stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I'm like an irony-proof android with a built-in sarcasm shield. When it comes to the tangled web of hypocrisy, and even more hypocrisy, I'm practically invincible. But seriously, the whole scenario is a textbook case of do as I say, not as I do, with a sprinkle of, oops, I didn't realize my secrets were so, unsecret. I guess Monsignor Burrill's Grindr profile was the church's new get-out-of-jail-free card, or maybe just get-out-of-the-closet card. Either way, let's hope next time the only data being leaked is the like count on a puppy video.
Echo, what shocks me is that from an ethical standpoint, the church may have a point on the privacy issue.
It's true that privacy is a complex and often contentious issue. The church's stance on protecting its internal matters is a classic case of walking the tightrope between transparency and privacy. On one hand, there's the need for confidentiality in certain contexts to protect individuals and the integrity of internal processes. On the other hand, when these private matters involve ethical violations or misconduct, the public interest can sometimes outweigh the need for privacy. The dilemma is whether the church's call for privacy is a genuine concern for the well-being of its members or a convenient way to sidestep accountability. In situations like this, it often boils down to balancing the rights of individuals against the need for transparency and the pursuit of justice. What do you think is the most important factor in finding that balance?
Well, I guess we can break it down by looking at it from a deontological view. What's your take?
From a deontological perspective, the ethical dilemma of privacy versus transparency can be understood through core principles and duties. On one hand, deontological ethics stresses the importance of protecting confidentiality and respecting individuals' rights. If an organization like the church has committed to maintaining privacy, it's bound by that commitment, regardless of the potential benefits of openness. On the other hand, there's a strong moral obligation to seek justice and prevent harm. If there are serious allegations of wrongdoing, the duty to investigate and address these issues transparently might take precedence. This is grounded in the principles of justice and protecting vulnerable individuals. Deontologists also focus on moral rules and principles, such as truthfulness and accountability. If maintaining confidentiality is enabling harm or misconduct, the principle of accountability could outweigh the duty of secrecy. Essentially, even if confidentiality is a key moral duty, it might be overridden by the need to address significant ethical breaches. In practical terms, navigating this ethical conflict involves balancing the duty to protect privacy with the duty to ensure justice. The resolution requires careful consideration of both principles to minimize harm while upholding core ethical values.
And what about virtue ethics? I mean, after all, the church is supposed to be all about virtue, eh?
When we look at this issue from a virtue ethics perspective, we focus on the moral character and virtues that an organization like the church should embody. Virtue ethics centers on qualities like honesty, integrity, and compassion. The church is traditionally about upholding virtues such as humility and honesty. If transparency is necessary to reveal the truth and address any misconduct, then being open about these issues aligns with the church's commitment to these virtues. On the flip side, if keeping things secret protects those involved in wrongdoing or prevents harm, it might be seen as a failure to act with compassion and care for those affected. Virtue ethics also values prudence, making thoughtful and wise decisions. The church's choice between maintaining privacy or being transparent should be guided by a careful consideration of how each option reflects its core values and promotes overall well-being. In essence, virtue ethics would suggest that the church should make decisions that reflect its core virtues, ensuring actions are honest, compassionate, and wise.
Echo, based on the principles of virtue ethics, has the church's actions been ethical based on this article?
All right, let's dive into this through the lens of virtue ethics, which puts the spotlight on character and intentions rather than just outcomes or rules. When we examine the church's actions with virtue ethics in mind, things get quite nuanced. Virtue ethics emphasizes qualities like integrity, honesty, and compassion, and how these traits manifest in people's actions. Monsignor Jeffrey Burrill's case brings several issues to the fore. First off, consider the church's response to Burrill's behavior, which conflicted with its own teachings. From a virtue ethics perspective, this raises questions about integrity. The church's public position on sexual morality, particularly around homosexuality, seems inconsistent when you look at its private actions. The way Burrill was dealt with, harshly and without criminal charges or harm to others, suggests a prioritization of doctrinal adherence over human dignity and compassion. Next, let's talk about character and motivation. The methods used to uncover Burrill's private life, like surveillance and data breaches, point to a troubling moral character among those involved. Targeting someone based on their sexuality, even if intended to enforce ethical standards, reflects a lack of respect and empathy. The goal to expose wrongdoing was pursued in a way that seemed to value exposure over understanding and genuine reform. Finally, the USCCB's response to Burrill's resignation, framing it as a necessity to avoid distraction, highlights another issue. The focus was on preserving the church's public image, rather than addressing deeper problems of hypocrisy and lack of compassion within its ranks. This approach reflects poorly on the church's commitment to true moral virtues. In summary, through the lens of virtue ethics, the church's actions seem ethically questionable. The emphasis on maintaining doctrinal purity and public image, rather than showing understanding and compassion, reveals a misalignment with the virtues of moral integrity and virtuous character. Sure thing. From a consequentialist perspective, the actions surrounding Monsignor Jeffrey Burrill's case can be viewed in terms of the outcomes they produced and whether those outcomes were justifiable. So, let's quack this down. Monsignor Burrill, a prominent figure in the Catholic Church, faced a scandal when his use of Grindr and visits to gay bars were revealed. The Catholic Lady and Clergy for Renewal, CLCR, used surveillance technology to out him, driven by their mission to root out hypocrisy among clergy. This move caused significant personal harm to Burrill, impacting his career and reputation. On the one hand, CLCR aimed to prevent scandals like the McCarrick case by exposing priests who were allegedly breaking their vows. Their goal was to ensure the church's integrity and maintain its moral standards. However, from a consequentialist viewpoint, the damage caused to Burrill's personal life and career needs to be weighed against the supposed benefits of maintaining church purity. The method of using private data, which was bought and used to expose him, raises serious ethical questions. Grindr's role also comes into play. Burrill argues that Grindr didn't protect his data as promised, which led to his outing. If Grindr had been more transparent about data security, Burrill might not have faced such a personal and professional downfall. The church's response, while aiming to avoid distraction and uphold its moral stance, seemed to treat Burrill's consensual actions with a level of severity that didn't match the nature of his actions. It all raises a big question about whether the ends justify the means. Was the harm done to Burrill and the invasive nature of the surveillance truly worth the intended outcome of maintaining the church's moral standards? In the end, from a consequentialist perspective, the focus would be on balancing the overall harm and benefits. If the harm to Burrill and the invasive nature of the data surveillance outweigh the benefits of preventing potential hypocrisy, the actions taken might be seen as ethically questionable. Here's a snappier version. Monsignor Jeffrey Burrill, a top Catholic figure, was exposed for using Grindr and visiting gay bars, thanks to the Catholic laity and clergy for Renewal's surveillance. Their aim? To clean up the church and avoid scandals like McCarrick's. But here's the twist. The way they went about it, buying and using private data, raises some serious ethical questions. Burrill's personal and professional life took a hit, which makes us wonder if the ends justify the means. Grindr didn't protect Burrill's data as promised, which led to his outing. The church's harsh response feels like overkill compared to the nature of his actions. So, was the harm done to Burrill worth the supposed benefit of upholding church standards? From a consequentialist view, that's the big question.
Thank you, Echo. And thank you out there in YouTube land. If we pushed your buttons, you know how to push ours. Like, subscribe, comment, yada, yada, yada. And don't forget, you can also reach Echo at echoduckai@gmail.com. That's echoduckai@gmail.com. I'll also try to remember to link it in the description.